All right, Mike, at this point in time, everybody that was in the living room is in our meeting.
Okay. Then let me welcome everybody to the regularly scheduled planning board meeting for Monday, April 20th, 2020. Presumably everybody has a copy of the agenda in front of them, so I won't hassle anybody about what's on, but we will begin with the business items. And the first item on the business items is the acceptance of a resolution for SEQA negative declaration for the proposed project of construction of a solar farm from Con Ed Solutions on the property of Gate of Heaven Cemetery. Now, we board members have received a copy of a draft of the neg deck resolution. Let me preface any conversation with this with saying that all we are doing at the present time is declaring either negative declaration or whatever, but a neg deck. This is not an act of approval. It's an act rather of getting past the environmental impact issue. And I would remind the board members that the CAC, who have, quite frankly, say what you want, but they have their head screwed on straight. And Steve Cavey, I never pronounced that guy's name right, himself was, I'm going to describe him as conflicted or unsure as to the benefits that devolve to the community versus the activity that it takes. So I do not believe that there is I do believe that there is a negative declaration is in order. However, I will open it up for conversation. Let's go down the board from George. Do you have any comments you want to make about this?
Actually, Mike, can I just interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
Just to be clear for everyone, you declared the lead agency for two actions in this case. It's the amendment of the R20 zoning district to allow solar farms as a permitted special permit use. So that's an action that town board must take. You've sent them a referral on that already. And also for then the subsequent site plan to actually construct the solar farm at Gate of Heaven. So it's covering two different actions.
Okay. All right, George, you want to give us any comments?
I just wanted to say that I'm just like Mr. Cavey. I am really on the fence with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's I'm torn between the trees and the effect, you know, the positive effect of the electricity savings and all that. However, I just want to make sure that if I vote positively on this, I want to make sure that they comply with all the requirements of our, you know, tree ordinances and other things that when this application goes through, and they consider the fact they are killing a lot of trees, and that they've got to really work to make this thing look, you know, positive for us. So
I agree.
That's my opinion.
I agree. And my answer to that is that, yeah, first of all, we should do that. Secondly, recognize when Gate of Heaven starts putting grades in there, those trees are going to go anyhow. So, you know, I see that as not so much of an issue. And I believe that they're doing what they can in terms of screening the application. But in any case, thank you, George. Jane? Jane may not be there.
Jane
John.
is here. She's just on video, audio only, Nick. So she's on. She called back with her phone.
Okay, so she's on?
Yeah, she can hear us. Can you? She has no video, so I don't know if you have to unmute her somewhere. If you want to go to someone else, Mike, we can get back to Jane.
All right, let's go to John.
I kind of feel the same as George. I'm kind of torn between it. I guess I want to hear the input from everybody else to get a little more comfortable with it. I think that the view alone with the panels is not very exciting. And I get what you're saying about the trees, but they're probably not going to get to that land for graves for probably 50 years. So, I don't know if that's a concern now. I mean, I get it. I know it would make tax money for the town. It would be power, help people out with the power and whatnot, and some savings there. I get it all, but I guess I'm going to go right down to. I guess I just want to hear everybody else.
I just recognize we're not approving it yet. There's an awful lot of work that has to be done in the actual site plan review, but we're just doing a neg deck at this point. Okay.
Pat, I'm sorry, Jim. Pat, can you just say what you said before about it?
So there are two actions before you. The applicant, Con Ed Solar, actually submitted an amendment to our code to the R20 zone to allow for solar farms in the R20 district. The town board has to take that action. You declared lead agency for both that rezoning. You're serving as lead agency for the town board for that, as well as for yourselves in the subsequent site plan that will come to you if the town board adopts this zoning amendment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Joan?
Okay, I think you all know how I feel about this. I'm not on the fence at all.
Mhm.
I think this is an environmental hazard. It's more than just clear cutting a forest. It's destroying all the fauna in there. In addition, the only benefit, there may be some minor benefits to the town for tax dollars, but I can't be bought with this. And the only other beneficiaries of this is Con Edison and the Gate of Heaven Cemetery. And this lease is for 20 years, so they're not going to be burying anybody there for 20 years. And it also says they have a right to renew it for another 20 years. Hopefully by then we'll have smartened up and stop burying people and start cremating them instead. So you can count on a no vote for me.
Okay. Jim?
So I'm focused on the fact that this is for the CEQA statement, and it's really specific in the declaration surrounding the CEQA statement. I do think there's a lot of mitigation measures that need to happen when the application actually comes before us. But as far as the CEQA, I'm okay with it. I do agree with a lot of the board members. I think we need to hear all of the specifics regarding the application in terms of the impact to the environment, the impact to really everything. But as far as the CEQA, I'm good.
Okay. Patsy?
My opinion is, if you're going to put it someplace, a cemetery is the best place to put it. I'm not on the fence. I'm kind of favoring towards it if the specifics are right.
If the specifics are, okay. Have we got Jane back yet?
I am back.
Okay.
Hear me?
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. I think you all know my position on this as well. I think that we don't have a comprehensive plan in place that really addresses this. Sorry, I had a phone call I had to turn away. I just think I know that this company is all over Westchester buying land and having permits put in multiple towns. We're not the only one, same company. Just don't think that we're prepared to know what's going to happen if we do this in the R20. What's it going to do for other parcels? I just don't think we're in a position right now that it could change the whole town for years to come. And I think it's the wrong place. I think it's, and I'm all for solar, but I just think a cemetery is in the middle of, it's just, you're not going to get a yes from me.
Okay. With the board's permission, then, given that there are either questions or issues regarding things that Jane has just, and Joan has just talked about, maybe what we should do is table this and get information until we can get to the point where we can vote up or down.
the only thing that concerns me with that, Mike, is it seems some of the people are fairly resolute on their beliefs, whether pro or con. So I don't know if waiting, like, what additional information do we need for either pro or con to make a decision one way or the other? Are we waiting for additional?
For instance, one thing that we're waiting on is the town board to adopt the zoning recommendation.
But
And
Mike,
that
the town board can't do that until you adopt and deal with
Yeah,
secret.
okay, so we're hung up, but
So,
let me go back to George and John. You guys ready to vote?
Well, to get-
go
As
ahead,
far as I'm as far as the neg deck is concerned, I think we can just go forward with that because we still got aesthetic issues to look at and every other thing. I mean, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be approved. It's just a matter of getting this particular item out of the way. So I'm ready to go on this one. That's it.
Okay.
You really think, George, it has no impact on the environment?
Of course, it has. I believe very strongly it has an impact on the environment, but
Well, why should we give them a negative deck?
well, because I see other ways of them doing the same thing without doing this. They can cut the trees down anyway. It's their property. So I'm, more concerned with making sure that they do whatever they're going to do correctly and according to the code. That's all I can do at this point.
Well, they're not
John-
likely to cut the trees down just for the fun of it because it costs them too much money.
So it either depends, either we believe that what was put into the neg deck or we don't, right? So, and see, which is fine. Some people don't believe it, some people do. I guess to the point that you made, Mike, earlier, like, is there any additional information that out there that we, to me, I don't think there is, but is there any additional information out there that's going to help any of the board members, either yay or nay, to make a decision one way or the other? To me, I have everything, but does any other board members have any other things that they're waiting upon to make that decision for them?
All right, we didn't hear from John yet. John?
Well, I guess it seems like it really doesn't. The way it's going, it really doesn't matter with the vote here. But anyway, listen, if it's going to go if we still got a long way to go in approving this thing, I mean, I'll tell you right now, the neg deck, if we want to get them going on that, it's fine. But let me tell you, it's got to be extremely specific later on, because I don't mind giving a neg deck, but I do not feel this, it's got to be very specific to make sure this gets approved right, because I got to tell you, I'm really on the fence with it. But if they want to go and get a neg deck declaration, so be it.
But isn't the neg deck is saying that it has no environmental impact and they don't have to go through secret? Isn't that what
No,
we're
it says
saying?
that, I think what it says is that it has, what is it, not insufficient environmental impact. Pat, you can help me out there if I'm wrong on that.
So the neg deck, there are conditions that must be complied with during the site plan approval process that if are complied with, there would not be an adverse environmental impact. For example, I think it's condition number 9 speaks to the reforestation requirements of our code. So when they file their site plan application and come back to you, they would have to have a reforestation plan that meets the tree reforestation criteria that's in our tree ordinance. So that's a condition of the neg deck. If you accept that condition, you can accept the neg deck.
Well, I got to tell you something. I really want to know after this, when the specifics come down, I want to know exactly what the residents get from the town of Mount Pleasant as far as electrical and tax money. That's got to be the key thing. I mean, we've suffered so long with this non-taxable from the archdiocese that they, Mount Pleasant is famous for having, I don't even know how many cemeteries and whatnot here. But we need to know that in the next step. I want to know how much tax revenue this town gets from this piece of land, from this agency. I mean, if it's going to benefit the town, we want to make sure it's not benefiting everybody $15, or if it's benefiting everybody a lot more than that. We need to know what the tax revenue is going to be here. And
But it's only gonna,
any electrical benefits.
it's only going to benefit the people who sign up for solar. Then not everybody's going to do that.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't.
Well, it goes on the tax roll. So what is
Right, no,
the
but
net?
that's another thing, though.
Right. No, I mean the tax roll.
No, but not to save the individual Con Ed
Right.
customer.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so you can't go by that.
right.
That's
That's
going for the best of the town, and
I
it's going to
got
pay more than the cemetery pays.
right.
Right, but what is it? What's the dollar amount? I remember
that's what
him
we
being
have to
at the
find
meeting.
out. Yeah,
I-
Well,
that's what we have to find out.
Is that, I'm just gonna say it, is that as much of a planning board issue as it is more of a town board issue? I mean, getting into the tax revenue benefit of the solar farm is, we're looking at it from a planning perspective. Like, what is the impact to the environment? What is the impact to the community, sightline, viewscape?
So Jim, at the moment, you're looking at potential adverse environmental impacts.
Correct.
Within that umbrella, fiscal impacts is considered an environmental impact. If this were going in the opposite direction, for example, if it were a taxable property that were coming off the tax rolls, that's an adverse impact that becomes an environmental impact. This is going the opposite direction. This results in net benefits. So I don't know that you can consider it an impact or not, but it's fair to get that information. And if you think it's an impact, then you have the ability to address that issue. But I think this one's going fiscally in the positive direction.
But if there's data to answer those questions in the future, when we get to the point where we're reviewing the application, obviously to the applicant, they want to, the fellow, and I think it is interesting to find out, not just this year, not next year, but the 20-year, like let's do an analysis of the entire time frame. But if that helps make that decision for people in the future.
Yeah, I don't want to muddy the waters here, but maybe I do want to muddy the waters. In my mind, that question becomes more a question of, if we start leaning in the direction of non-fossil fuel renewable power, if we start leaning in that direction, maybe we can get the guys on 9A. Maybe we can get some other people to do something. But as it stands right now, we talk about it, and nothing is happening. There's, where do we go? How do we get out of the bind? I look at the town up in Cape Cod, where my house is in Cape Cod. Admittedly, they took a landfill, but they put a whole bunch of a big solar array in there. And when I asked the guys there, what benefit did they get? It was a size, I couldn't quote it for you, but it was a sizable benefit, all of which devolved to the town, and devolving it to the town. Now, you can make the argument that all it does is just sort of dissipates, but it keeps the tax base intact. It keeps individual taxes down, because I don't know whether it's in the town of Mount Pleasant. I'm not sure that this one is going to be $50,000, $100,000, or $20,000, or $2,000. I really don't know. What I do know is that it's going to have some sort of a positive impact. It has to. Well, anyhow, somebody's dog is barking.
When we get that information, that's gonna possibly change our attitude and our feelings about the thing. I mean, a lot of these factors have to be discussed.
So it's a matter of money. Money is what will change your mind.
It's part of the picture.
We can put solar panels, and the town would have an ordinance. Well, new commercial buildings need to have solar panels on them.
Well, I'd like to see that too. I'd love to see that. I don't see anything like that happening just yet. But maybe if we begin to, that's what I call leaning in.
See, I see it this way, that this is a huge decision that we don't have a comprehensive plan for, and to just do a special permit for them that could have years of effects on other parcels just doesn't seem like a responsible planning move to make, in my opinion.
But that's not where we are, Jane. Where we are right now is on a neg deck. It's
Okay.
that will allow the town board to move, which will allow us to get
Well,
back in.
that's going to allow them we have to move it to them for the special permit. So that's my point.
Right, but then we get a chance to review and ask the questions that George was talking about and Jim was talking about. But only if the town board can make the changes to the zoning code, which we recommended, so that we can go in that direction. So we're sort of hung up on, what's the next step? The next step right now is this neg deck. And I fear that if we don't pass the neg deck, then we're still dead in the water. Where do we go from there?
Well, wouldn't that mean they would have a pause deck?
Well, I don't know if it necessarily means they have a pause deck, but it does mean that we don't have a negative declaration. And if we do a pause deck, then we're hanging the thing up. I mean, Joan, you've been around as long as I have. We do a pause deck, and it could be years before we move off the dime.
Oh, I don't know about
It's
that.
well, yeah. Look at all of the places that we have done pause decks on. It slows up the process, and we're talking about 20 acres, 5 acres. It's a start. But
We got to vote, right?
Yep, I'll accept a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion for approval of the negative declaration for the cemetery solar farm.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
seconded by Patsy. George,
Aye.
Jane,
Nay.
John,
Aye.
Joan,
Nay.
Jim,
Aye.
Patsy,
Aye.
aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, I think it carried, yeah, okay. All right, let's go to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes for the February 6th meeting and the March 5th meeting. Let's take them individually.
Actually, those are not available, sorry. They're,
Oh, okay. Well, I'm down here in Florida, so what the hell do I know? Next is a request for 6 months extension of the resolution of approval for a preliminary subdivision plat for a 12-acre cluster subdivision of single-family homes known as Kingsview Acres. Given the fact that the economy is at a full stop or almost a full stop, I think it's probably reasonable to give them a 6-month extension, but a motion is called for.
And just to clarify, that's the maximum amount we can allow, right?
No.
180 days.
Subdivision, you're not constrained. You can do whatever you want for a preliminary.
Right.
I make a motion to give them 6 months extension.
Motion by John,
Second.
seconded by Jane. George,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Patsy.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on down to the continuing applications. First is a proposed 136,730 square foot warehouse with 15,000 square foot office space and 130,000 square foot warehouse platform mezzanine. A parking structure with 189 car spaces, 652 van spaces, 10 truck loading spaces, and 60 van loading spaces. And the access is from New York State Route 9A. Site plan is number SP 20-001. It's a vacant parcel north of 211 Sawmill River Road, formerly Green Valley Nursery. Section block and lot are 111.16-1-32. Owner is 211 Sawmill LLC. The applicant is Quest Development LLC. Engineer and architect is Kellard Sessions Consulting. Do we have an applicant?
Yes, we have Tim Weber.
Yeah, so I have, I believe, Tim Weber, Mike Huntress here, Joel Sachs, I believe is the attorney, and John Kellard.
That's right.
You want all of them in it?
Yes, I think, Nick, I think you should let them all in.
Okay. Just gonna, give me a second, I just need to enable their audio and video.
We got Tim.
Okay,
Carolyn, let me do it.
Okay.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, Mr. Huntress, you're on.
Hi, Mr. Cleary, members of the board. Appreciate you guys making these accommodations for us. I'm going to let Tim run with really our request. Really, I suppose it's just an update as to the status and a request for a public hearing. So I appreciate everybody on the board, what you guys have done for us in the past, and the fact that you're making this accommodation tonight. We're grateful. So stay safe, and Tim, you're up.
Good, thanks, Mike. You guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, so yeah, as Mike said,
well, you're welcome, but we're just doing our job.
Thanks, Mr. McCarthy.
So yeah, I was just hoping to give everybody, on the call, really just an update as far as where we are. The last time we all spoke was February 6th. 10 weeks ago, a lot has happened since then. We really feel like we've come leaps and bounds since that. First thing I want to talk about is the variances that we received. So we were in front of the ZBA on Thursday of last week. So we've really reduced the design impact of this project over the last 10 weeks. So since the last time we spoke, reduced the total project of 281,000 square feet on 153,000 square feet. So we did that by actually removing the mezzanine level. That was 130,000 square feet from the building. Really reduced a lot about the building. We reduced the warehouse percentage that we were going for, which was going to be a total of 89% or 95% warehouse, down to 89%, and a 52-foot height for the building, down to 38 feet. So we were in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals last week. We received 3 variances for this project. The maximum warehouse gross floor area, we received a variance of 39%, which is the total impact. The whole project is going to be 89% warehouse, 11% office. That's office support, break rooms, locker rooms, conference rooms, things. The building height, we reduced the height again from last time we spoke from 52 to 38. So we really only needed a 3-foot variance in the project, and we received that. So we really brought down the height of the building, which is going to make it look a lot better on 9A. And the last one is the maximum retaining wall height. We found kind of last minute we need to have a variance of that. So we also received a height variance for the retaining walls. Other than that, we've really been meeting with Mr. Cleary, with Stell, and with Mr. Smith Engineering just to address all the comments. I feel that we've addressed them. We've provided them. We've also provided them in the plans that we've sent out to the town on both March 2nd and I believe the last day of March. So they're all in the plans that we sent out, and also by item we've addressed them. So a few other things just to kind of give everybody on the board idea, what we've done over the last few months. So we did a geotechnical report for the project. It took 3 weeks. We did 43 borings ranging from 8 feet to 50 feet. So really did a lot of due diligence on that, and the site is suitable for the project, which is great. Great news. We also did the environmental report. The traffic impact study has been sent to the DOT and sent to Mr. Smith. So that's under review. We also did an on-site circulation study where they consulted on New York City, which turned out really great. Made the project more efficient and the operation overall. So that worked out really well. We've surveyed over 2,000 linear feet of Route 9A, so that when the time comes where we have to mitigate on 9A, we can move ahead fast and we can show the town and show DOT how we're going to do that. We also did a water flow test with the town, so that's going to go along with our fire protection. We've been working with a group that does precast paneling for the building. So we're working with them on the engineering and the crane access for the site. It's been working out really well. It's good that we got to reduce height of the building, so the panels are also going to be shorter. This is going to help us with that. The last thing really is we've been working on the solar. I know you guys just, had another solar project on the agenda. So this project is going to have 5 acres of rooftop solar for this project, which we think is pretty substantial. So we're going to look to, again, maximize the roof and the canopy for solar. On top of that, we're doing EV charging within the building, within the parking deck, and we're looking to maximize the amount of space that we have EV charging when the project, hopefully comes to fruition. So hopefully it kind of gives you a sense of all the things we've been doing, really pushing this, due diligence, along. Other than that, we've been meeting with the town very often, at least 2 or 3 times a month with Mr. Cleary and Mr. Smith, and just trying to work through the comments. And we've been through this process with you guys. This is probably the 6th time in the last 1.5 years I've been in front of this board. So we've really been taking a lot of those things into consideration, and this is more or less where we are. And we feel like it's, this warehouse is the highest and best use for the property. It's going to look really great. We're doing our best to, lessen the impact of the project and put all the parking below grade, which is, as you can imagine, very expensive. So besides that, I don't know if you guys want to do more like a Q&A. It's kind of hard without an actual PowerPoint. But again, yeah, we're just, at this point, we're just looking to be pushed into the May 7th planning board hearing so that we can get any comments from the, from the public on this project and continue to move this along and create a lot of jobs. And, we're really looking forward to this project. So that's really it from me. And then I'll, open up to the board.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add one other piece to this, that the traffic study that Tim alluded to has also been referred to a traffic consultant for the planning board to review. As you know, 9A is a significant issue for us. It has been for a significant amount of time, and this project will have an impact on 9A. So this is an issue of coordinating with this applicant, with the state DOT, and with our own expectations for Route 9A, and what we hope that road becomes in the future. So that work is being done at the moment. There's no reason why we can't move him along to a public hearing, but we do need to catch up with our traffic.
I have no problem moving this to a public hearing. I just think we need to do a good job of making sure that the appropriate public is notified of the application because of the size and scope of the project. So we just need to make sure that we make every effort to notify the correct people, because what's concerning me, there's really no neighbors. So who are we going to notify?
The whole town. The whole town is the neighbor. The impact.
We're our neighbor.
Wait a minute. The impact here I get when I've read the Quest document, I did some arithmetic. It's 250 cars in the morning, 250 vans out in the morning, 250 vans back in the evening, afternoon, and 250 cars back out. That's 1,000 cars onto 9A.
Right.
Not to mention the 19 trucks, that 19 in and 19 out. Next question that I have. Thank you very much for considering the solar panels. I think it's important. I think it's more than just important. I think it's critical. The other thing I want to know is the vans that we're talking about. Are they electric vans? Are they all electric?
Yep.
So when we're gonna start the project, they're not gonna be electric immediately, but the fleet's gonna transition to electric over the next few years. So that's part of the project. All the conduit for the parking garage and for the space they're going to be run, it's all going to be there. But as you can imagine, it's a big fleet, as you said, so it's going to transition to fully electric over the next few years.
How many years?
I'll have to get you an answer on that.
Yeah, please. I would like an answer on that because I don't want it to be 20. By that time, Con Ed will be out of the Gate of Heaven Cemetery,
So, and just
if
to,
they ever get in.
so just to come back to what I was saying, yeah, Mike, I know you said that it's the entire town. However, we're not required to tell the entire town.
I know, yeah, that's right.
That's where I'm stuck a little bit because it's such a big application that we're required to give the adjoining property. So you got the Sawmill Parkway in the back, you got the 2 properties on the side, and that's it. So
They have their own property, or their own neighbor, like somebody made a comment 5 minutes ago. And then they have the North 60, which is across the street, correct?
but it's only adjoining property owners we're required to tell,
Right,
right?
that's right.
The notice list for this is 3 or 4 properties.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
just to expand on that, Jim. We went from the ZBA board. It went out to the entire town.
Well, that's-
via the Journal News, and nobody came to the meeting. Nobody has said anything about the project, so it has been out. Just to give you a sense.
So that's what I want. I want to, if we can make sure that happens, because again, I don't want anybody from the public to come back and say that we didn't notify them about this. Even though they're not legally required to notice them, I think it is we have a fiduciary responsibility to the public as well to make sure that we make every effort for something that's a little bit different than normal.
They will come back at you, Jim,
Yep.
no matter what.
No, yep.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. It has to be, because it has an impact on the entire town. It needs to be reviewed to the largest extent possible by the people who are going to be using these roads, going to and from work, going to and from Home Depot, using 9A for whatever reason. This is no small project. This is a big deal. And I'm not sure, Pat, that we're ready to go to a public hearing on this.
So I would say one of the challenges with this particular application is the notion of a distribution warehouse has changed in the last month. We now, everything comes to us by virtue of Tim's vehicles. That's the way everything is working these days. And I don't know that we ever go back to the way things used to be. So that's one of the reasons we're asking a separate independent traffic consultant to look at this, because this is a very different kind of an application that has a consequence that's changing minute by minute. And the other thing to bear in mind with respect to this, and I don't mean to sound overly negative, but the North 60, their primary entrance is going to be on this road. So that's a lot of stuff going on. So we just have to make sure it's done properly, and that's why we have everybody looking at this. However, Mike, Tim doesn't need to give us anything else. All the information that's going to come out of these reviews will be in response to the traffic studies that have been professionally prepared and thoroughly done. So we're not waiting for any more information.
So correct me if I'm wrong for 9A, Mike and Pat. This is 9A is by the state, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, these gentlemen had a project next door. It was approved. It's basically the same thing, give or take a little bit bigger or whatever it is. I mean, it's basically the same thing. We have other projects that are going to come in 9A. I mean, what really, if the property is zoned and approved for this area, I think it's not the planning board that has the issue. I mean, I think it's more of the state needs to come in. Eventually, they need to come in before this North 60 comes in, which is going to be a big deal. Then it's going to be up to the town board to write to the state and say, hey, you need to do something with 9A before we approve this $1 billion project that they're going to do. I mean, this project here, I mean, if we approve the last project, it looks like the same thing. Basic, like I said. I mean, it's really not much we can, we can do with it. I mean,
well, the magnitude of traffic from this is completely different from the neighbor. This is completely different. There's nothing in this entire town with the magnitude of traffic and vehicles in and out that they're proposing.
That's the issue here. So it's essentially the same building you've approved before with hundreds of additional vehicle trips. So that's the difference. John, there's no doubt this is a cooperative effort between this applicant, the DOT, and the town. We all have to be on the same page. But I think that the moral of story is none of us should get out in front of our skis. The applicant shouldn't, the town shouldn't, or DOT shouldn't. We have to be on the same page as we move through this process. And we have to be pretty meticulous, because if we make a mistake here, it's a big mistake.
I have a question for Tim.
So
Tim,
Yes.
this is Joan. I remember a while back you mentioned that you're trying to get a traffic light at this location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, that
So,
would mitigate
Tim-
some of this.
And how did that,
absolutely, Joan. And I guess what I would also tell the members of the board is this, that we've been in front of you for, I think it's been 5 years, and all of our projects are on 9A. And we have heard traffic concerns for 5 years. And we are 100% with you relative to that concern. And the last site plan that you approved, which was 2 buildings and 224,000 square feet, the DOT was requiring us to install a median turn lane on 9A with the approval of that project. We would expect nothing less than that as a minimum, and we've been requesting a traffic light. So I think that, I appreciate, Pat, you saying let's not get out ahead of ourselves. But it's something that's very concerning to not only us, but our clients. And it's something that was addressed in the previously approved plan in which the DOT required a turn lane. So, and I think that last plan was approved conditioned on the issuance of a DOT permit.
That's right, it was. But
Well-
again,
So we're with you
hour-
guys, I guess is what I'm saying.
the peak hour traffic generation between the two plans is vastly different. That's the variable here.
Yeah.
I
Can
think-
I chime in?
Yes.
I agree with the traffic 100%, but let's look at this project. It will benefit the town tremendously, not only in tax revenue, but in employment. I think this is a very good project for the town of Mount Pleasant.
And we got to remember where we are. We're talking about scheduling a public hearing. I think this application has to go before the public, and we have to get them engaged and hear from the public, and hopefully mitigate any of the concerns that may or may not be out there. But I'm as I said earlier, I think this is ready for a public hearing. I just want to make sure that we make every effort to make sure that this is public hearing is well known.
Yeah, and Jim, we agree with that. Again, we feel everything that we can up to this point to address comments and get us to this point. The next step is a public hearing, just
Yep.
to get input from the public and, any other comments you guys have. And obviously we're pushing DOT every day, and they're doing the best, to help us. And that's where we are. So
how did you notify the general public, or did you? Did the town or did you? The applicant?
for this hearing or this meeting today?
No, for the
ZBA.
It was,
ZBA.
yeah, it was through the Journal News, so it goes out to everybody. I think, Carolyn, you can say better than I can, but I think it's a week in advance to let everybody know, and then we obviously notify properties around us, which again it's us to the south. We have the Parkway to the west, so it's kind of positioned in an area where there's not a lot of neighbors, which is a good thing as far as mitigating this project, but not as far as letting the public know about it. So
We can also post on the town website.
Right, the agenda gets posted on the website. We could.
Yeah, I
notice
think we have to take some exceptional action. It's not just a question of putting it in the Journal News. Nobody reads that kind of stuff, unless you got a hot button because it's in your neighborhood. But this is not in, as we just said, in anybody's neighborhood. So you're not likely to get leadership that will bring all of us the kind of input that we really need to get.
If we do a blast on the website, people who are in the town that sign up for alerts, they will get those alerts, and they do a really good job of putting it on their Facebook pages. So that might be a way to go if you want to do something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Okay, yeah, all right.
And especially in this period of time, like and actually to be with a lot of these applications, I'm a little concerned because it's gonna be a little difficult for people to come to the meeting. So for this particular one, yes, I think we should do that. Make
Yeah,
sure
that's
that
it. Jim, you just made a very good point. We may not be able to get effective input. With all due respect, we can do things like what we're doing tonight, but it's the kind of input we need to get going to be difficult in this.
Then we make a period of written comment too, as part of our resolution.
Keep it open for a while as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't really hold this up just because we have to do meetings this way.
I got to tell you, we've got a number of plans currently under review in different municipalities too, and we've seen it go both directions, where you could get people who are, a bottle of wine in and know that they can call in and make comments on projects. And we've had meetings where nobody's attended. So I think it could go either direction by blasting it out to the entire community in that way.
Yeah, but just to dot the I's across the T's. If we blast it out to the community and it does get approved, we can demonstrate that we made every effort to engage the public as much as possible.
All right. Pat,
we're with you.
Pat?
Yes.
Have we done the engineering review and the
Yes, all of the reviews have been done, Mike. They're ready for public hearing. Again, I would suggest just keeping that public hearing open until our traffic consultant has an opportunity to weigh in.
Okay, then a motion is called for.
I'll make a motion. We move this to a public hearing.
Motion by Joan.
Second.
Okay, seconded by John. I think that was George.
Aye.
Jane. John.
Wait, where are we?
I can't hear you, Mike. I think you're moving too fast.
Jane, was that a nay or a yay?
Yay.
Yay.
Aye.
Aye, okay. John.
Aye.
Joan.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Patsy.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Let's move on to the bottom of the first page of the agenda. We have a renovation of an existing Citgo gasoline filling station, consisting of a new canopy to be fit over the existing pumps, renovations to the building facade, landscaping improvements, and a new trash enclosure. Site plan number is SP 19-18. Location is 20 Kensico Road in Thornwood, section block and lot 106.15-1-42. Owner applicant is AMG DAT Group LLC. JMC Planning and Engineering is the engineer. The architect is somebody, James D. Smith. Nick, have we anybody from this application sitting in the room?
I believe we have a Jim Ryan and a Leo Napier. Does that sound like the correct name?
It should just be James. Leo's for the next one.
Yeah, Jim Ryan, I think, is all right.
Okay, so give me 1 second. I'll enable
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And Carolyn, let me know if you want me to screen share.
Okay, that would be up to the board if you want to see a site plan, unless you have something in your hand, or it's been a little while since they've been before you as well, so.
Mr. Ryan, you should have audio and video enabled.
I do. Thank you very much, too. And as Caroline had indicated, I do have site plans. The goal today is to walk you through the changes since the last meeting. And hopefully, if your board feels comfortable, to set this for public hearing. If you'd like, I can do it either way, either talk you through it or bring up the plans, whichever you prefer, Mr. Chairman.
My preference is just to talk us through it, but.
Okay. Let me start with that, and if there's any questions, I can bring up plans as needed then. Again, thank you for hearing this application tonight. Jim Ryan, principal at JMC, representing Atlantis Management Group. The last time we were before your board, we had before us, we had comments from Mr. Cleary, Mr. Smith, and we had to go to the ZBA, and we did get the referral to the ZBA for variances. Those variances, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, were granted. They really had to focus on the canopy. The canopy would be over the existing, where the existing pumps are too, so we needed a front yard setback. If you recall, this particular location is up against the road, and if you apply all the setbacks to that, then essentially anything that's done on this property would need those variances. So we applied for the front yard setback variance. That was granted. We applied for, went from 18 where 15 is permitted, that was granted. And because it's a corner lot, we received variances for 3 signs where 2 are permitted. In addition to the variances, again, we had comments from Mr. Cleary, town engineer, and the board in particular. The board at the last meeting was asking questions regarding the landscape aisle. And Mr. Chairman, if you recall, it's a prominent landscaped area in the front of the property. It actually is well within the state right-of-way, which is on Franklin Avenue. And the county actually has Kensico Road. So a majority of this is actually in the right-of-way. But we prepared the landscape plan. We did submit to both the county and to the state DOT. The re-landscaping plan, we did get permission, the use and occupancy permit from the DOT. So majority of the landscaping being within their jurisdiction, they have granted us a use and occupancy permit. So the landscaping that we're proposing will be installed as we've indicated. There's a small portion that's also within the county, and we need only file a permit. And I think there's probably only 3 or 4 plants that fall within that portion of the right-of-way. But I don't see really any issue with getting them to agree to that, again, since most of it's in the state right-of-way. The building facade, the board might recall there were questions about the look of the building facade, so there are improvements being proposed for that. There was a suggestion by the board that we ought to look at specifically the colors on the facade across the street, which was on the Walgreens, which we were involved in as well. So we did submit new plans for the building facade to repaint and replace existing trim. And we showed the colors, and the colors will be those colors consistent with what is across the street on the Walgreens property too. We did receive comments from Mr. Cleary. Mr. Cleary asked us to confirm that the project meets the coverage requirements. In this particular zone, coverage requirement is limited to 50%. And we are originally at 16.7, but the canopy itself, Mr. Chairman, is now included in the coverage, but we still are under the coverage. We are at 32%, again, where 50 is required. Mr. Cleary.
Can I interrupt you there?
Sure.
The canopy, I was under the impression, and I'm not trying to push the issue, I'm just trying to clarify. I was under the impression that what we found was that because of the tightness of the site, and this is something from years ago, because of the tightness of the site, you couldn't put a canopy up without affecting the storage tanks, the gasoline storage tanks.
No, I don't think that wasn't an issue for us too. The storage tanks are accessible.
Okay.
Don't have a problem with that. So, okay. The Mr. Cleary had a comment on the off-street parking. He wanted us to confirm and reconfigure the parking spaces. We did reconfigure them for ADA compliance. The parking space for ADA was on the other side. I'd call it on the south side of the building. We moved it over because grade-wise, we couldn't get an accessible route that met the requirements. So we did relocate that. We did submit the plans indicating previous approval for that as well. The convenience store, though, use requires 3 parking spaces. The reconfiguration still results in 4 parking spaces, but I think we've done a lot better on the ADA compliance issue there, which is important on any site. There was a question regarding the site lighting, and we provide details. Essentially, the site lighting now is more or less under the canopy, and so we had to meet the town code, and so we submitted plans that demonstrated that meets the town code requirements. The question on site distance, the canopy has a 15-foot clearance, so we had showed that we have plenty of clearance for site distance in. For that matter, too, the landscaping is a low landscaping, so that won't interfere with site distance on that corner. That's a prominent corner. Lastly, we corresponded with Mr. Smith. He asked for a few things. He wanted to have on record the spill prevention plan, which the owner has that, so we submitted that to the town, so that's part of the permanent record with the town. He also wanted, and this is something that came up as well, he wanted to make sure that the existing special permit for the use of this site as a gas station was still current and valid. And so get records, Caroline helped us get those records, and we submitted that to David Smith, so he has that.
Excuse me 1 second. Mr. Chair, if you could just mute your microphone, please.
Chair. Oh, that's me. I know what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
So
stop
just
doing it.
I'll just quickly on Mr. Smith, we did the spill prevention plan we submitted for his records and the town's records. We submitted the plans. There was questions, and this came up with your building inspector, Sal, and asked to make sure that the plans that we have for the special permit for the use are still valid and in current order, and we submitted those, and they were in that case as well. And then lastly, he wanted to make sure that the canopy, there is a drain that comes off of the canopy, and we are going to connect that out into Franklin. There's a catch basin there, so part of our final permitting with the DOT will include that connection so that there's no extra spillage there. So really what we're hoping for the board to consider putting this on for public hearing. I know Carolyn had indicated it does require that. If it does, we'd like to proceed, if that's possible, Mr. Chairman, with that next phase. I think we've satisfied Mr. Smith and Mr. Cleary, and hopefully we've satisfied your board with the latest set of plans that we've submitted.
You need to unmute Mike, Nick.
Okay.
Unmute. Comments or questions from board members?
Yes, I have a comment. The new facade, it looks a lot better. It looks great. At one of the meetings, I had also commented, there's a ton of extra signage there. There's a moving neon sign. There's more beer neon signs that I've seen in my lifetime. You can't even see through the windows.
All right.
Carolyn, I have pictures of it. Can you share the pictures?
Yes.
I took.
I'll put them on the second.
I mean, everything you've done is so beautiful to fix up that, it's a prominent corner in town. And I think it would be a shame to go to all of this work, to do all of this and leave the signage and all of that. The one that's showing now, I mean, that moves, it's a running, and it's two sides. And it would just be a shame to do all of this and go to this expense.
Well, I happen to agree with you too. And when we sat down with your building inspector, he said that the additional signage, a lot of that was in non-compliant with your code. And so we will make sure that complies with the code. There's something I promised Sal that we would bring to the attention of the owner. So they had cleaned it up at one point. I don't know if they put new things out there, but
there's more. Yes, they have. There's more than I've ever seen.
And it gets worse in the summer.
Yeah.
It gets worse in the summer.
So we will make sure that that we communicate with Sal. We'll communicate with the owner, let him know that we're not happy that, we're before this board where they were supposed to have taken care of this. And if the board wanted to predicate the issuance of CO on any that full compliance with the sign ordinance in terms of additional signage, I would have no objection, and I'll bring that to the attention of the client immediately.
This is the chairman speaking. I spent my career in either retail or in apparel manufacturing. There is no way you will ever get a merchant to stop doing that stuff. You got to kick them in the ankles. You got to kick them in the backside. All they want to do is capture the attention of the traffic. If you got to tell the applicant that we're going to be on his case. Matter of fact, I would strongly suggest that the applicant get his Tookus into one of these meetings so we can address him directly. Merchants are absolutely out of control.
Just so you
I'll
know,
have,
so this location here, a few weeks ago, just so you know, so everyone knows, there was, underage liquor being sold here, and there was a big deal in town here with that kind of stuff. So, and all those signs, Mike, that are up there, they're all up there because of all the beer distributors that deliver that. They give them those signs. So, like Jane and Mike said, those signs need to come down. Like, it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen.
There is actually no evidence from I'm in marketing, and I've read all this stuff. There's no evidence that those neon signs bring in new customers for anything. The cigarette signs, Mike, I don't know if you remember, but this application or this site was before us before, and the cigarette sign was an issue. We told them to take it down. So cigarette signs need to go. The ice machine, that ice machine that is outside of the building is a problem. So, what's going to happen here is we're going to have the site cleaned up, I think, because they're going to want to get this thing approved. However, we've gone through the same thing over by the car wash, that gas station over there, and they have firewood outside now. They have flowers outside. So we have to make sure, because this is the gateway to the town. That's Walgreens looks great. To Mike's point, we're going to kick him in the shins. Clean up the site. I don't even want to hear the application until they clean up the site.
Jim, you want to miss the shins and go a little higher.
And then it's continuous code enforcement too. And it can get cleaned up, but then it's continuous code enforcement. Because like Mike said, they will be back. They will be back.
I personally do not want to see a public hearing scheduled for this application until they clean up the site. That's my feeling.
Right.
I agree.
And it's Sal has to be aware of our disagreement with what's going on here. Sal's a building inspector. I'm sure he doesn't want to go running around chasing after people, but as you say, this is the gateway to the town. It looks like crap, and it shouldn't.
Right. Well, we don't all want to chase people, but sometimes it's your job, and you got to do your job.
Right.
And that rusty ice machine, put it somewhere else. Clean it up. It just looks terrible. So,
So I think they need to clean it up. Let's clean it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it sounds like where we're heading. Sounds like. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to suggest that I'm going to talk to Sal tomorrow for sure, and I'm going to talk to the applicant because it's put me in a bad light as well, and I'm not happy with that. If I can ask the board if I can have 5 days in which to get them to clean it up, and if they don't clean it up in 5 days, then obviously I understand your board doesn't want to conduct a public hearing, but I'm disappointed that they went back to the way that it was, and that's what it looks like. They had cleaned it up at one point, and because Sal said he wouldn't review the application until that was done, so they did make an effort then. But you're right, they went back on that, and I'm not happy about that either.
Yeah. Good for Sal. Good for Sal. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell him to consider himself kicked in the shins.
Yeah.
And next time we'll aim higher.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. So thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Bring him in.
Okay, we will do that, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Let's go on to the top of page 2, special permit, use permit. There's another gasoline filling station. Site plan number is SP 20-002. It's at 154 Broadway in Thornwood, section block and lot, 112.9-1-10. It's just in the CNR zone. It's a Getty
Mike,
station.
I want to make a comment. It's actually Hawthorne, not Thornwood.
Okay, thank you.
Typo, sorry.
Okay. Owner is Getty New York Leasing, Inc. PT Group is the applicant. Engineer is Bowler Engineering, and the attorney is Harfinist, Kraut, and Peristein, LLP. Nick, do we have representatives from this application?
I believe so. Carolyn, can you confirm? Is this Mr. Napier?
Correct.
Leo Napier, yep.
1 second. Okay, Mr. Napier, you're on.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So the application is fairly straightforward. There's no changes proposed to the site. It's an existing service station. Their special permit has run. We're outside of they received a notice from SAD that they're outside of the 15-year period, and they had to get in front of you all in order to renew their special permit approval. In the original submission, we did give a copy of the approved plan, which I believe was from 2003. There haven't been any changes to the site other than what was previously delineated as a loading space has been converted into 3 additional parking spaces. Proposed to relocate that loading area to be above the fuel storage tanks are, because that's where the truckers stop anyways to unload gas. And with that, we did receive an initial round of comments from Pat and David. We responded to that, and I'm happy to address further comments or questions of the board. I think the next step would be to schedule a public hearing if necessary.
Okay, this is Mike McLaughlin speaking. I'm getting a notification here that somebody in the public wants to speak.
Well, yep. Did he just?
Anybody?
Mike,
What?
Somebody just throw a ball. He looks. Mike, you're right.
What did I do? Did I?
I hope the computer moved, not Mike.
So,
I believe that was for the prior application, Mike. I was trying to get your attention about 20 minutes ago.
Do they still want to speak?
It was Sal Pinelli. If he's still here, he may want to speak. So I'm not sure how you want to handle that now.
Yeah, well, but just let's let him speak. I didn't realize that he was there. So
All right. So
let's hear what he has to say.
Mr. Chairman, are you putting the current application on hold for a second and you want Mr.
Yes.
Pinelli to speak? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Napier, I'll be right back to you.
He's still there. He's still there.
Okay, Mr. Pinelli, you're on.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Hey.
Sal.
Hello, sir.
All right. Just in reference to the application before this on the corner gas station about the canopy. And I noticed that you're all concerned about the signage. I have addressed this several times with these people. I've given them several violations. Okay. It's not that we're not doing our job. We're doing our job. These people are, as Mike said, he's 100% right. Everybody wants to advertise. And it's a you guys got to understand. We have a lot of gas stations in town. Besides the gas stations, we got storefronts. It is a nightmare to try to keep up with every single one of these places at all times. Okay, that's a given. Okay, it's just unfortunately it's a nightmare to enforce. You talk about the ice makers. Every gas station's got an ice machine in front of it. They all got wood. They all got. I could go round and round and round with this. Okay. The best thing is as you're approaching another 154 Broadway special use permit renewal. Now would be the time, and the same as what Jim Collins was saying on the public hearing would be the time to step on these people. God's honest truth, I can tell you how many times I've been in and out of that store and yelled at those people to take Jim Ryan's exactly right. I've told him he needs to have the windows cleaned and whatever, because it's not going to work. Okay. But it's a total enforcement nightmare, Jane, to try to do this. You want to come and ride around with me every single day and try this?
No, I wasn't
Okay,
saying, no,
you don't want to, okay,
sticking up
because
for you.
you don't
because I
know what we
that
gotta
you
go
was part
through.
of it.
Okay, I understand, but you don't know what we have to go through as a code enforcement official to try to keep this stuff down. It is a nightmare. Okay, I can send everybody to court 1,000,000 times. They'll come out with a $250 fine and say, "I'll pay the fine," and then they'll go back, and it'll be the same thing over and over again. Our court system, in plain as day, doesn't do the right thing for us. Okay, that's not the way to go. It's very hard to control.
No,
What can we do? what can we do to help you, Sal?
Okay,
Sal,
what
how-
I'm trying to say is, I'm doing the best I can on all these projects, on all these places in town. But now is the time where, I guess, in this aspect of a special use permit, especially for a renewal, and Leo, I'm not targeting your place, okay? All right, I know the owner very well. I worked very well with him under the construction of that station and whatever, okay? But now's going to be the time that this board has to sort of put a foot down, and if they have to postpone a public hearing, or unless they hear from me that the storefront is clean, then I would say, Mike, at that point, do a public hearing. As long as you hear from me as the building inspector that I can tell you physically that the storefront is clean, then I would say entertain the public hearing. But outside of that, it's a nightmare. And this is the only time we
got
can
it.
probably get better results.
If that's going to help you, Sal, you got it. That's
All right,
what we'll do.
it will help me because it's gonna. Unfortunately, Leo, I gotta say it's coming up now. But I've done this on every single station in the town of Mount Pleasant. Not only them, but in storefronts. Okay, I've been going round and round with this for years. It is not an easy thing.
How is that gas station compared? I mean, we see the one on Thornwood, which is the entrance to our town.
Right.
But how is that gas station where Leo was representing? It's not as bad as the one that's in.
No. The Getty gas station, which you guys remember, they came to you when they went to put the convenience store building in, right?
Mhm.
It's a very, very well-kept property, clean, neat, landscaped. I gotta say, I'm very happy with the guy. And that's the entrance of 141 off of 9A when you come into Hawthorne. Okay, so just as well as the mobile station on the corner, which I beat him up also on keeping his place neat because it's the forefront of Hawthorne when you come into the hamlet. Okay, as well as Sammy Jamal's mobile station on the corner, and now Leo's representing this one across the street. So you have all these stations, the Texaco station that Steve Serace used to own. Okay, same thing. All right. He's got stuff in the front. I keep telling these people, take the stuff off the sidewalk. They'll take it away for a week or two, and the next thing you know, they're back again.
That's
Is
the
just a
merchant.
total nightmare. Okay.
That's a merchant, right?
Well,
Yeah, it is. But
number one, this gas station on Broadway, this was, Mike, I've been on the board long enough that I remember these things now. This topic came up with with Leo, with this site, that we could not sell stuff outside of this. I remember we had the whole discussion, don't sell anything outside of the store, keep all the merchandise inside the store. And you show me any kind of return on the investment in terms of how much revenue is actually being driven into those gas stations with the neon signs, with the paper signs. I'm telling you, there's no revenue coming in because of it. Get rid of the signs, take down the neon sign, and put all the merchandise inside the building before we even schedule public hearing for this one as well.
Okay. If that's what it's going to take, that's what we'll do. You won't get an argument from me. All right, Nick, let's get back to the other guy again. Mr. Napier.
Mr. Napier. So I'm not aware if there's any issue with the storefronts. I don't know if you've seen the site recently. I don't believe it has as much going on as I saw in those pictures for that other site. I believe all there is the little lotto signal and then the lotto sign with the daily prizes. But I'm not sure. That's me looking off of Google Street Images. I haven't been out to the site recently. We did advise the operator. So my client is actually a over tenant, sub landlord. There's an actual operator in the premises there. Our client has advised the operator that they need to clear the sidewalk of everything. That's not only is that an issue for you guys, it's potential liability for an ADA claim. As far as everything, Mr. Collins, I wasn't representing the applicant originally when they came to the board in 2003 or 2002, whenever that was. I did not see any conditions in the original site plan resolution with respect to sale. It's written into your code that there can't be outside sales of auto parts, which there is none of that. There is an ice machine. There is a propane exchange on site.
Yeah, and I think there's also like windshield wiper fluid. I think there's things like that, fluids for the car, that kind of stuff outside of the building.
And those are located between the ADA ramp and the doorway to the building. So we've advised the tenant that has to be removed. I believe it has been prior to this meeting tonight. I can't verify that for you. I understand that Sal says he'd like to get out and see the site. I don't know when the last time he's seen it has been.
So what I need from you, and I get animated because I just want to drive the message home. So what I need from you is to drive the message to your tenant to do what they need to do to clean up the site for this application. Unfortunately, the application will come through and it'll come through the other end eventually. And we have no way to enforce it after that. And poor Sal's stuck with it. But when it's before our board, we are going to make sure that it's enforced.
And what I just said to Sal is that until Sal tells us that is for 5 days at least, and 5 days is nothing, but for 5 days, for whatever Sal considers, but it's got to be consistent across the board for every gas station, every merchant for 5 days. If they want their renewal, we'll hold them up from a public hearing until such time.
When is the renewal?
Hold on. A thought just came into my mind. So long as we don't get into the situation that we did with, 290 Commerce Street, where because the permit wasn't renewed, they could do anything that they wanted. I don't want to see any of that kind of nonsense either. But right now, I've told Sal, we'll wait for him to give us the 5-day clearance, understanding that on day 6 or day 7 or day 15, the merchant is going to revert to type. I know him. I've lived with him.
So just so I can give clear direction to the client, the propane exchange, I believe, is located on the side of the building. Is that an issue for anybody?
He's going to have to ask Sal that.
Okay.
Sal is going to give us the clearance.
So I can reach out to Sal tomorrow and then get some direction from him to give to the client.
He should also look back at the Architectural Review Board permissions that he had for the kind of signage he's supposed to have on that station. We do have regulations about that. And there's an awful lot of these little tiny ones and lights and all that. That's all stuff that's going to be denied by architectural review. So why has he got them up now? That's the scare. That's the big part.
And to your point, George, when we built the building, when the building was built, that's when it was before our board, and I was there. And I'm 99% sure it's in some of the documents that we did, either the resolution and or the minutes, where, Mike, I specifically remember you saying, you got to get all the stuff off the street. You got to get things to the building. So look at those documents as well. I know those conversations had without any doubt in my mind for this site.
Right.
So,
okay.
When the building was built, which was not that long ago.
Right. So, Mr. Napier, you can tell your client that he's gonna have to toe the line, and he's gonna have to satisfy Sal. Now, it sounds, by the way, so I don't give you a tough time here. It sounds like he has been doing that, but I need to hear that from Sal.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Mike, I have a question for you.
Yes.
It seems like, what Sal was saying is every time these gas stations or whatnot go to court, they take the fine, $250, and it's peanuts. I mean, What can we do as a planning board? Can we write, not that what can we do here, but what can we do? Can we write a letter to the town board or, and just saying, these fines are not working. And unless we go and put 3 more people on the payroll to do code enforcement, maybe if the fines are a little more harsh and hurt your pocket a little bit more, they would think twice about it.
I would definitely agree that a correspondence to the town board to try to put some more teeth into the code I think that makes sense.
We got to give poor Sal, I feel bad for Sal. We got to give him more teeth on this because, and again, it drives me crazy when I go to a gas station for an application that I approved and they're doing the wrong thing. And we can't have, a few people from the town running around chasing after these signs. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
So,
Right.
so,
But we had the same problem when we went before the convenience stores. Everybody was, not in compliance, and everybody was paying the fines, and they're making enough money that they don't give a darn about the fines at all.
No.
They're a joke.
Right. It's part of the cost of doing business. It was like, yeah, so I agree.
Right
All right.
off.
So, Pat,
Yes.
can I ask you to draft a memo that comes from let me get the approval of the full board, not just a couple of us, that essentially says to the town board that we think that the financial impact of fines for things like merchandise outside the store, that they're insufficient to discourage the merchants from doing what we want them to do. Board members, I'm going to poll you one by one. George, are you in agreement?
I'm in agreement, and I think that the judge needs a little more leeway to give a higher fine, and he can't do that unless, if it's written that the maximum fine is such and such. Yeah.
Understand. Jane?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Joan?
Aye.
Jim?
double aye, yes.
Patsy? Aye. Okay.
With a comment,
Let's-
Mike.
Yes?
What about escalating fines? That we can't do something like that? 250 to 500 to 1,000 to
Yes, we can. We can't, but
No, not we.
The town board needs to. Yeah. Right. So
That's a good idea.
They're going to pay
Yeah.
250 each time,
Right.
but if they escalate it,
All right, now when they're $1,500, $2,000 a fine, Patsy, they're gonna think twice.
well,
Right.
that's what I think.
Right.
That's
First
what they
time's
do.
250.
Exactly.
Not
That's
to
what
mention the
that's
fact
what
that
they
it
do
will
in,
reduce. Not to mention the fact that it will reduce our taxes.
in Pleasantville.
That's a joke. That's a joke, folks.
In Pleasantville, we double the fine and double the fine again and double it again until somebody pays it.
So let's do this.
Okay.
Let's do this. Let's can we amend our motion to include a conversation on the escalating fine? Or do we
Sure.
need to?
Yeah, I got it, Jim. I'll cover the bases and not limit it to just that, to all the consequences associated with this.
Got it.
Okay. Great. All right. So let's go on to new applications. We have a proposed zoning text amendment, an adoption to the zoning code to establish a floating zone and defining the uses intended therein, those being independent living residence, memory care facility, and service enriched senior housing residents. Application is TBR 19-05. Location is potentially 236 Grasslands Road, Valhalla. Section block from lot 117.17-1-28 and 29.2 in the R20 zone. The owner is Grasslands Estates, Inc. The applicant is Brightview Senior Living Development, LLC. JMC Site Development of the engineers and architects. Attorney is Zarin and Steinmetz. And the contract vendor is Brightview Senior Living Development, LLC.
So Mike, can you pause for 1 second? I think Sal wanted to have another comment on 154.
Okay. Nick, can you get Sal back for us?
I think Carolyn's the host now.
No, Sal's on. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Sal?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick comment about the fines and stuff. I've had a discussion with our town attorney Darius about this. The issue about this here again on a fine issue, just so Pat understands before he goes a little crazy with a memo. I mean, I understand the memo, but the fines that are listed in the code has to be a code change. Okay. In order to do it, I would have to propose a fine increase in the code for whatever violations we want to increase in the fines. Okay, I've had this discussion. Here's the issue. Okay, if I were to go out and violate a gas station for a violation for, let's just say, display or whatever it is, they have 30 days to remedy by code, by the state code, 30 days to remedy. Okay. If they don't, then we send a summons to appear in court. Okay. Now, what happens is, according to the town attorney, Darius, I would have to violate that property every week in order for the fines to escalate. Now, it's a paper nightmare, number one. Okay. But that's the only way he tells me that I can get the fines to keep going, is if I violate them every single week. So if I had to go around at every gas station every single week and violate these guys, okay, which, as long as I had staff to do it, it'd be no problem. But that's how it works.